Welcome to our annual Meet the Candidates Night. I'm Steve Northup, a member of the Lake Ridge Parks and Recreation Association's Board of Directors. I'm also chair of the 2017 nominating committee. I'd like to thank Comcast for being here tonight to tape, and I'd also like to thank my fellow committee members. One of them who's here tonight, Mr. Wayne Mallard, and Mr. Doug O'Brien couldn't be with us tonight, but they were integral parts of the nominating committee meetings we had, so thank you. LRPRA is a homeowners association. We're located here in Prince William County, and it's a $5 million corporation. Let me repeat that, $5 million. We have numerous amenities. We have approximately 7,300 units. They comprise single-family homes, townhouses, 2 apartment complexes, condominiums, and several commercial properties. Our association's policy-making body is our 9-member board of directors. It should be noted that our board members serve on a voluntary basis. Each year, an election is held for the 3 seats vacated by our outgoing board members. This year, the 3 board members whose terms are up are Christopher Berry, Dave Fram, who, by the way, is not here in attendance but is on the line with us, and Neil Nelson. All 3 incumbents are seeking re-election, and Mr. Fram will be able to answer his questions via the landline. Tonight, we'd like to introduce and ask questions of our board candidates. The seating order, as well as the candidate order on our ballot, was determined by random selection. The candidates are Janet Foote, Dave Fram, who's not here. Joseph Vanzletier could not be with us tonight either. He, unfortunately, had a medical emergency and is out of town. He did tell me he's excited about his candidacy and would also like your vote in the election. And we're waiting on one other one. He may show up. Mohammed Imran is also not with us right now, so we'll kind of wait and see how that plays itself out. Then Stephen Godrow, Manny Agriña, Neil Nelson, and Christopher Barron. For this evening, I'm going to ask each candidate to give an introductory statement. Please note that in the interest of time, we ask that it be a 2-minute time limit. And I have Ms. Martha Nelson is going to be my timekeeper tonight. Will let me know when you get close to that mark. And I'm going to begin the opening remarks with Janet Foote, and then following in order will be Dave Fram, Stephen Godrow, Manny Agriña, Neil Nelson, and Christopher Barron. So Mrs. Foote, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Janet Foote, and I've been a resident of Lake Ridge for 25 years. I can hardly believe that much time has gone by. My husband is a retired Army helicopter pilot, and we came back to the Lake Ridge area after having served a tour overseas in which I was the DOD employee. I was a customer assistance supervisor for the whole European and North African part of the world. So I have DOD logistics and strategic planning experience. I was a senior strategic planner and a DOD logistician for a number of years with DOD. I also, in my background, had been treasurer of a $5 million credit union and served on their board in Richmond, Virginia. I believe that communities are strengthened by caring and concerned neighbors. That's why I'm interested in running for the board of directors. I believe that homeowners' property rights must always be protected. And I believe that homeowners associations add value when they are an instrument for positive shared community values of safety, cleanliness, beauty, and harmony. And I think that's why LAPR has been successful for over 42 years. That spirit is embodied by our community, that spirit is embodied by our staff, and I think that spirit is embodied by our board of directors in their service to you. We're rather unique in the state of Virginia in that we're the second largest homeowners association, in the state. And we also have our own staff instead of contracting that out to an entity to manage the association for us. So we're involved as your community leaders. What I hope to offer you in my vote, if you vote for me, is lack of experience. I have served 6 years on the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Foote. Next, we have Mr. Fram. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Fram?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I just couldn't hear some of the responses, but I guess the microphone is a little too far away.
Okay.
But if you can hear me okay, can you hear me?
Everybody can hear you okay. So,
Okay,
you ready for your introductory
For
statement?
about 18 years, I worked for a government contractor, and I was a CPA. I've been in the community for probably 37 years. My main goal is to make this a nice community, and the home values are kept at a high level. That's the main reason I'm on the board, and having said that, it's not an easy task. And there's the management staff, and then there's the board of directors. And the board of directors tend to guide the management staff in a right direction, but management staff does all the hard work. But over the period of time, we kept it. I think we've kept the home values at a very good level, and I think that's really what all homeowners are really looking for. You can't have high home values if you have a lousy neighborhood or a crumbling neighborhood, and we've kept that at a going rate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fram. Next we have Stephen Godler.
Well, good evening. I go by Steve Godrow. I live right down the road here a ways, and kind of keying off my bio, I was born and raised in Weirton, West Virginia, little steel mill town. If you remember the commercials back in the day of the Indian crying because of the pollution, I think that started in my hometown. I'm not sure. But once we figured out how to stop all the smoke, I survived. Left there, joined the Marine Corps, spent about 21 years bouncing around the planet, and actually came to the Lake Ridge area for the first time in 1998. That transition from my last squadron. I was a naval aviator and got to finish in Hawaii, which wasn't a bad tour. And came back here, and I've been living back here in this area within a mile apart of the two places that I've either purchased or rented since 1998. So for me, that's a long time, because I've never lived anywhere, home or school or otherwise, where I've spent most of the time of my life in one location. So it was kind of a milestone for me. And so I'm here this evening because, like was mentioned, and I guess I'm the first candidate here that's kind of new meat with respect to some of the folks who have experience. I've been living in an area and taking advantage of what these board members have done for the past 16 years that I've lived here. And so I thought it was about time that I made an effort or made a contribution or tried to make a contribution to chip in and be a part of that when I now have the time to do the same thing. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Manny.
Thank you very much, Steve. My name is Manny Agrinya. Well, full name is actually Emmanuel, just not to confuse you, but I go by Manny. Everybody here knows me as Manny. And I have actually lived here in Lake Ridge about just under 8 years. I have loved every minute of it. Live here with my wife, Florette. We've raised 2 kids here. They both went to Springwoods Elementary here. One is now in high school. Unfortunately, she goes to high school outside of the county here in Thomas Jefferson, and the other one is over at Lake Ridge Middle. We have loved every minute of raising our kids here. We think it's an amazing community. It's a little funny because before we moved out here, we actually lived in Alexandria. At the time, I had an aunt who lived here. I thought it was like a whole different country, seriously. Driving down Highway 95 to get here. And so until we moved out here, I realized how beautiful the place it was, what an amazing community it was. And just kind of like Steve was pointing out, for a while I didn't really do much about it. I mean, I'm an assistant scoutmaster, but at some point I figured, you know what, it makes sense to kind of communicate or, to contribute to the community itself. Personally, I think what makes a community strong is communication among neighbors. I think that's something we've had too little of in general. I think I can make a contribution in that area, because in my day job, I am a software engineer. I have built systems that actually allow people to communicate, you know. Generally, you're doing these things online, you're doing it over your phone and stuff like that. What I think I can combine that with bringing it down to the real world, where, you know, have people talk to each other, both face-to-face and then on Facebook and then on Google Plus and things like that. I think I can make an effort in that area and kind of contribute something in those areas. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for this. I very much, you know, love your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Neil Nelson.
My wife and I moved here in 1985. We bought our first house, and so that makes about 37 years now. So back then, we thought it would be nice to have all the wood, live near the wooded areas and near the water, the reservoir, and I've enjoyed that all this time. That's one thing that makes Lakeridge special. Like many of my neighbors and like the folks here at the table and other members of the board, I'm employed by DOD. I work for the Army as a civilian employee in an organization that develops enterprise information systems. Currently a board member, finishing up my first term on the board. I'd like to do another term. I want to continue the trail project and be one of my goals. I was a little bit familiar with how the board operated before I was elected, but learned a lot in the past 3 years, gained some experience. I've tried to be active as a board member, was the chairman of the Trails Committee, or still I'm the chairman of the Trails Committee, and co-chaired the Deer Management Committee as well, but again, the bulk of the work was done by our John Mayer back there, who got the volunteer group going. And then I thought it'd be important to also participate in some of the other committees as well. So I attended the Strategic Planning Committee, and I think it's important to participate in the Finance Committee, so I did that as well. And now we're working on the GM Succession Committee, the General Manager replacement. Personally, I've been a volunteer for a long time with the Prince William Trails and Streams Coalition. We do trail work and stream cleanups in the county. And I organized the first trash cleanup on the Hoosier Run area of the reservoir several years ago, and we continue to do that every year. And I've also organized volunteer trail work days.
Thank you. Mr. Christopher Berry.
Thanks, Steve, and thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight on a rainy evening. I'm Chris Berry, and we've lived here in Lakeridge now for 34 years. I've just about to complete my first term on the board, the 3-year term. Last year, I had Steve's job, and that's when my hair turned gray. You think I'm kidding? I believe that Lakeridge, I truly believe this, and I've believed it for a long time, that Lakeridge offers the best buy in housing in the Washington area. Just look at the price of homes anywhere else and what you get for the money. I mean, you can't get an apartment in DC for the price of a single-family home in Lakeridge. And so if I could wave a wand and change anything about Lakeridge, I would want to improve the marketing of our community and let more people know how good it is and why it is a Best Buy and what it offers. I mean, kids can walk to school safely. The crime rate is low. I mean, what else do you want in a community? I mean, and Home Depot is only 20 minutes away. But, and the second thing I would change, if I could wave a magic wand, is that I would like to take the main road of Lakeridge, which is Old Bridge Road, and work in cooperation with the Virginia Department of Transportation, and come up with a way of landscaping that median, so that as you drove into Lakeridge, that main road, and as soon as you hit Lakeridge, suddenly the scenery changes. And there you've got a landscape median, and it would stay landscaped the entire way you're through, and then you'd know when you left Lakeridge, because the landscaping would stop. I think anybody coming into Lake Ridge looking to buy a home would immediately be struck by the fact that this is a community that really takes pride in itself. So that's the second thing I would do if I could wave a wand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you for your answers. I have two questions for all of you that the nominating committee came up with. And after you have all answered that question, we'll take questions from the audience. And if that doesn't work, if we don't have any questions, I've selected some other questions from previous meetings, and each one of you can answer one of those. So for the first question, I think you all were made aware of it. It's why are you seeking election to the board of directors, and what would you contribute as a board member? What I'd like to do, and then follow sequentially, first to answer that will be Chris Berry, then Neil Nelson, then Manny Agriña, then Steve Godrow, Dave Fram, and lastly Janet Foote. So Mr. Berry.
Thanks, Steve. Within the last 3 years, your board has made progress on two major issues of interest to homeowners. First is the trail that the county is in the process of building across Lake Ridge. This ambitious trail, when completed, will allow families to walk from their homes in Lake Ridge and follow the trail into Occoquan. This scenic trail is designed to start in the west before Lake Ridge Park, go along the Occoquan Reservoir through woodlands and by streams, cross Blues Run until it finally reaches the town of Occoquan. So the board's job is to keep enthusiasm level high for the trail because it is an expensive multi-year project, and we need the county to appropriate funds yearly, perhaps for the next 3 years. The second major issue affecting homeowners is the continued oversight of the program to reduce the deer overpopulation. We are now in the second season, and the program, thanks to people like John in the back there, is working well. But while these are important issues, there is a new item in the coming year that may well become more important for our association than any other. In the coming year, a search committee will recommend to the board a replacement to succeed our departing general manager, Ron Piera. Ron has fashioned a very strong and competent management team, and your board members have a huge task in front of them to find a worthy successor. I welcome the opportunity to contribute my time and effort in helping to find and hire the best candidate we can afford for the position of General Manager of Lake Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Neil Nelson.
Well, I would mention before that I would work to continue progress on the trail project. The agreement was signed in almost 3 years ago now, in spring of 2014, and I don't think it's moved as fast as anybody would like. There's been some work going on in the background, but the actual trail construction work is only taking place this year. And by the way, they made some good progress this month. Second and third week of December, they got a lot done on sites 4 and 5 that have been pending. I want to make sure that Lake Ridge is never in the position of holding anything up, that we take all the actions that are required of us, and so far we have. It's, I'm not putting blame on the county, but I'm just noting that they have limited resources to devote to the effort, and they've got layers and layers of reviews and approvals that they have to deal with, so it is slow, and would like to speed it up and keep it going as best we can. I would also continue to support the deer management program. I think that group is doing a great job, not only the deer population control, but they're working on conservation projects as well. They've done invasive species removal, and they've done plantings, and that will continue as they operate. And I would support any other projects that along the same lines, you know, removing invasive, planting natives, erosion control, and continue to work on cleanups. And I guess the bottom line too is I want to note that I would strive to keep the best interests of the homeowners in mind on any matter before the association, and that would be my goal.
Thank you. Manny Agrini.
Thank you again, Steve. As I pointed out earlier on, I've only lived here about, well, probably slightly shorter than a few of the folks here, 7.5 years or so. However, I am running for a seat on the board of directors because, like I said before, I really wanted to give back to this community that has been very good to me and my family. I do believe I have a few, things to contribute in that regard. For one, I am very interested in the area of communication, really, just interaction between folks. Between myself and my neighbors, we do a whole lot of, talking. As a matter of fact, we have a neighborhood party every year, directly under the tree in front of my house. It's amazing. You're all invited to it, by the way. I want to kind of communicate, contribute that and continue to grow that across the entire Lake Ridge. I think it can only be a good thing for us. That's one. And the other thing is I grew up in an area where I remember very vividly my childhood and how, my friends were and playing with my neighbors' kids and things like that. I'd like Lake Ridge to be such a place for children growing up as well. As I mentioned earlier on, I am an assistant scoutmaster here with one of the Boy Scout troops. I've watched these young kids grow from when they were Cub Scouts to where they're Boy Scouts today. I think if we keep the community where, they remember after they've grown to adulthood and things like that, how it was in Lake Ridge, how Lake Ridge was for them, I think it'll be an amazing thing. And I hope that, with your vote and getting voted onto the board, I will be able to contribute in all the different areas of it. So.
Thank you. Steve Godrow.
Thank you. So as potential new blood for the committee, my answers are a little less specific, although I'm really a fan of the trails. So Neil, you may even have my vote. Those are great trails. And Chris, if you're looking for the deer, they're in my backyard, mostly because my wife feeds them apples. So, but I've lived here long enough to know, to see what the association and the board has done around me. I see the road improvements. I see the signs posted for the things that were mentioned, the trails that are being upgraded, and things like deer population, things that we're all concerned about. So, but most of those things I'm simply unaware of, and that's why I want to get involved. I want to find out what they are. I want to take a shot at being a part of the challenges that a board faces in an association of this size. Experience I have comes from probably at least in two other occasions, two, maybe three, where I sat as a board member and one as a president for a nonprofit boards that ran, and again, keying off my bio, everything from children's homes to military associations that granted scholarships to high school kids of warriors, wounded warriors, that sort of thing. So I have experience working with the boards. I have the experience of, doing kind of things that you have to do on your own time after work hours, and the things that obviously you're not being paid for, but the things that you know are important to other people. So I'm accustomed to that kind of a background. Like others here in the government and the military, 21 years in the military gave me a lot of time working with projects, people, and programs, and all the aspects that fall into that. So I come into this, I guess, with my own idea that I've got the background to be a potential good and productive board member, that I'm interested and excited about trying to do something new. And if I get that opportunity, that's what I'll be here to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Dave Fraham.
Hey, Steve, could you repeat the question because I couldn't hear when you first said it?
Why are you seeking the nomination for one of the board seats, and what will you do if elected?
Okay, well, I'm seeking the board seat because I've been doing it for all these years, and I feel like I've learned and got good experience of how to work with the board and management. So I have and I've learned that experience through working with 8 other board members for every year. And over the time, we had some great board members. time goes on, homes need repairs, fix up, and we have a plan and process with the covenants area that looks at the homes and makes sure they're kept up to standard. And that takes funds to keep that organization going, and it's a very strong part of our organization. And that's that's the main important thing for our community. And we like to get maybe more young people into the community that would take the time to fix their homes up too. And another small area I would like to see done is, and this may sound funny in a sense, is to add another playground for the little tots. I think when you have those type of amenities, it might bring in a lot more people to the community. And obviously, by definition, if they're bringing their tots, then they're younger people. And that may also help spruce it up. I know that I'm in favor of the trails, and I think that's I'm in favor of a lot of the amenities, but ultimately, what is it that makes our home values stand up and makes people want to buy our homes in this community? And we have to look good all the time, and I think that's the effort that I put into it. And also, I'd like to make one note that since I'm on the phone, nobody can see me. So if they look in Lake Ridge today, there's a picture of all the board members, okay? And I'm the better looking one.
That's where I'm going to draw your comments to a close. Thank you, Dave.
Well,
Okay, Shannon, first.
Well, we had a previous mention of the fact from Chris that there have been major challenges through the past years, and I think the community and the board is to be applauded for the progress that we've made on trails and that we've made with deer management. None of those have been easy. The thing I'm most proud of is that we've been able to bring the community together through open forums where we've gotten opinions from everyone. We've fostered a majority of opinion, and we've moved on with what has been suitable for the community. But don't forget that neither of those have finished. And we're facing some more severe challenges, not severe, just challenges that need to be met, I think, with experience and knowledge of not only the operating procedures of the association, but also of the Virginia Property Owners Act and of our governing documents. I think that's a critical time when we start to choose how we're going to provide for succession planning. We have a fantastic staff. We have set a great model with the policies that we've been operating in the community. And as Chris said, we will be, the Succession Planning Committee next year will be facing the task of selecting someone to replace our general manager. We also must recognize that in the future there may be other people who've earned the right to retire after many years of very good service to the community. So I'd like to be a part of that. And I think that the past experience I've had has been in business management, in leadership, and in finance. And I think that I can bring those talents to bear on those challenges.
Thank you. The nominating committee had agreed also that at this point in time, if there are any questions that the audience may have of our candidates, we will take those, and I'll designate the order for that. If we have no questions, I've selected some other questions that are probably going to be a heck of a lot harder than what the audience might. But anyway, do we have any questions from anybody in the audience that they'd like to pose to our candidates? Okay, well then I'm going to start with some we've had before, and I'm going to start with Manny Agriña. Manny, what do you think LRPRA can do to improve homeowner property values? And again, 2 minutes.
Well, I think I can answer that pretty directly, actually, seeing as I've actually been part of having to respond to such an inquiry from the association. Well, you want to make sure that, homeowners are obviously in compliance with the bylaws of, the regulations, architectural regulations, or whatever other regulations the association has put in place. Homeowner values or home values are not just, for the particular, don't just affect the individual owner of the home. What you do in your home affects your neighbor. And so we need to have a system in place that allows a neighbor who notices something out of place to report such a thing. Now, I know we do have it. I know it's online. And I know that folks, do use it, or maybe not as much as they should, because I did go back, I was looking through reviews of our LRPRA online, and I saw on Google Plus that there were some people who had, they had given us 1 star or something like that. I tried to dig in and see exactly what the biggest complaints were. Most of them were saying they weren't, hearing back from folks. They would send an email in and didn't hear back. Well, that brought 2 things to my attention. Either they didn't know about the tool that they could simply go directly to use it to report it, which is the right tool to use, or they didn't realize that they could also, they had other avenues, like say, for example, even the LRPRA Facebook page, which I noticed was being responded to very well. Whenever somebody posted a comment there or an issue, it was being responded to. I saw people responding to it. So we just need to kind of make it clear to people where they can go to report issues they think affect their homeowner values, so that we can respond to it directly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Neil Nelson, 1 in 6 homes in Lake Ridge is now occupied by tenants. How might the association be more inclusive of that tenant population?
Well, the same question applies to our residents who are homeowners as well. I mean, how to get them involved in community matters. I don't have any real good answers. We talked about it many times, like in the strategic planning committee meetings and other board meetings. We try to communicate using modern social media, Facebook, of course the newsletter and the website. Many of us, I think all of us, are interested in trying to engage residents in volunteer projects as they come up, or I think it's great, again, that we've got homeowners who are members of the deer hunting group. That's Lake Ridge residents. So they're not only doing that, but they're also doing the improvements to the common areas, the conservation projects and trash cleanups and so on. We do some of the basics, keep the facilities up, maintain the facilities, and provide good recreation opportunities, and offer an attractive community to folks.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Barrett, for you, the LRPRA board recently created mission and vision statements and is working toward implementing a strategic plan. What is your vision of Lake Ridge for the next 5 years, 10 years, and what types of changes do you see occurring within the community?
Darn it, well, I knew about the 6-year plan and the 12-year plan, but I forgot about the 5-year plan.
That's why I'm
Give me
here.
a second. Give me a second. We had, about 4 years ago, there was a great push here to come up with a strategic plan. I must admit, I think the thing has sort of fallen by the wayside. I don't think we've had any strategic plan meetings for at least 6 months. I've always thought that the reason that we have these plans is not so much to come up with where the organization should go, but to help people think through really on themselves what they think the organization should do. We are a organization that is pretty old. We were formed in 1973. Our swimming pools are over 40 years old. And and they're getting older every day. Any plan that we have has got to take into consideration that our physical plant is aging. And before we start thinking about new things to do, we've got to start thinking about how we're going to rebuild the stuff we have or maintain the stuff we have. So I'm not too much in favor of looking out more than 5 years. I don't think I'll be here more than 5 years from now. But so I have limited, I see the limited utility in trying to think out 10 years. There's so many variables involved. We might have new presidents coming along that will change everything. So I prefer that we just look 1 or 2 years ahead.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, what can the board do to stimulate more homeowners' involvement within the community?
Can I call a friend? You know, the answer to that question is an answer that I would ask myself as a homeowner. I love where I live. It's just a nice house. Been there since I retired in 2001. We got a front porch that watches the sunset. We got a back porch that watches the woods and the deer and the fox, squirrels, the birds. Did I mention deer? Deer. But I love where I live, and I love driving in and out of my community. And so when I see other houses, you know, sometimes you can tell the difference. We were commenting in here. You want to keep everybody up to a certain standard without making them think you're slapping a post on their door every week. And so, so I've had experience in the past with initiating programs that just give people the opportunity to do better things and motivate things. Social media is good stuff. Not everybody uses it or reads it. Letters are good. I'm a little more old-fashioned in that sense. Sometimes I'd rather read a letter than an email, although it's an email that got me here tonight. So, but I think some of the programs require, as Manny put it, I think the best way, requires communication, and probably more so on a personal level. You may not necessarily get a neighborhood party together, but you sure can make some efforts toward putting programs together that give people, without telling them what to do, give them the opportunity and choices of what to do that increase the value of the community and make things look better. I think if people have choices, they have an opportunity, they're going to feel more like we are obliged to participate and communicate.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Fram. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Your question, and for no more than 2 minutes, what do you see as the most crucial issue facing the Lake Ridge community today?
Well, as I said before, and I reiterate, the crucial issue is keeping the community not growing old and having the good house values that we have. It's really tough as years go on, homes get older, it's tougher to do. The standards become tougher for people to keep up with because of, that particular thing costs money. But we have to be strong and vigilant and making sure that people keep their home as a strong asset. Because their home is nice, our home is nice. The other thing I would like to do is, I'd like to do this without having to raise any types of the fees that we charge the homeowners, especially the dues fees. And I say that because on the board for 18 years, I've kept the increases below 4% in all those 18 years. So and with that kind of restraint, it's tough to keep the things going when you're limited to the amount of money that you can raise to fund some of the other issues that helps take care of that. So I think, to me, that is the most important issue.
Thank you. Pardon me. And last, Janet Foote, in what way will you ensure that your decisions on issues are in the best interest of the entire membership and not just a minority?
When I first joined the board, and that was 7 years ago, I had served 2 terms. One of my goals at that time was to increase communication and transparency with the homeowners. I think through the past few years, this board has done that, and there's been greater communication. I think with the more town halls and more open communication with the homeowners, we can be sure that we're not hearing just a small minority group. And probably the best example of that was both the trails and the deer management. There were advocates, as is common today in so many issues. We're polarized as a nation and as a community often, and we don't hear very well what other people are saying. And I think that one of the ways that I can ensure as a board member that we are hearing the majority voice is to ensure that we give everybody an opportunity, and that every person that's participating in town halls and active in our community understands that we are hearing them. Oftentimes, if you listen to all parties' opinions, we can find a common ground, or we can replace misinformation with actual reality of what the true information is. And there are a lot of times when we need to dispel that and put that information forward. And I think our association has done a really good job of that with both trails management and with the deer management. So I would continue to do that on the board to make sure that the majority interest is represented and not any one specific small interest.
Thank you. Our final question of the evening is a straightforward one. Quite simply, of all of you, why should homeowners vote for you? And let's start with Steve Godrow.
No, sweet. I guess in some sense, I mentioned it before, I'm new to the board. There's very good reason to vote for folks and people who have been part of this board for a long time. You have to. That's where the experience is. That's where it lies. And then maybe for the same reason, there's a reason why you want to vote for somebody new. New usually means fresh ideas, fresh approaches, and some other things, experiences that maybe some of the other board members have or didn't have. I suppose those would go in my favor. I do have a lot of experience working with, as I said before, programs and people and assets and finances, and finances in terms of how to spend it, not how to keep track of it. But that and the fact that, like I said, I love where I live, and decisions and efforts that I would make as part of the board, I would treat with the same respect that I have for my home that I think you'd want for your home and others would want for their homes, and that would be my approach, and that's why I'd ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Fram, it's now your turn.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question again.
I'm walking down your way. Why should homeowners vote for you?
Because, as I've said previously, I've been on the board for 18 years, and I've learned in those 18 years what it needs to do, what we need to do to keep the community as elegant as it is. And I've worked with different boards, and I know how to do that, how to see how they work, and actually learn from the new board members too. So I've learned for number 18 years. I can do that, and I can help the community continue being a prosperous community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Janet Foote.
I will be faithful and loyal to this community, as I think I have been in my 2 terms on the board. I think I have the qualifications and the education to make a good mix with the current board members and with any new board member. I think that the voters this time around should recognize that we face some challenges that we weren't facing the first year that I was running for the board. And I think that, as Dave said, you might want to consider weighing those people who are familiar with the governing documents, with the internal procedures, and with the budget and finance for the past 10 years or so. But I have always encouraged and welcomed people that are new board members, and I'm really excited this year that we have more people running this year than I've seen in the past 10 years. So I welcome any new board member.
Thank you, Janet. Christopher Baird.
Steve? A board member has got three main duties. One is the duty of obedience, one is the duty of care, and the third is the duty of loyalty. The duty of obedience means that you will adhere to your governing documents, to the board resolutions, to the decisions that have been made. You will respect precedents. Duty of care, which I think is perhaps one of the most important things, is it means you've got to exercise due care in dealings with the organization and its interests. And that means that you have to question. Now, sometimes people don't like people to question because they think that they're slowing down activities. But if you don't understand something, you should question it. I like to think that I do question. And finally, there's the duty of loyalty. And that doesn't really affect us too much. It means conflict of interest. I mean, if we were discussing buying a parcel of land and I happen to own it, then of course, out of duty of loyalty, I should recuse myself and not get involved. Because that really doesn't happen for us. I'd like to think that I fully support all those three duties and will do my best to adhere to them. And thank you.
Thank you. Neil Nelson.
Well, I'll make a commitment to fulfilling the responsibilities of a board member. I'll try to remain, continue to be active as a board member. I've got the experience of serving one term on this board and been a board member and officer on other community groups. Like Janet, I recognize the importance and I encourage town hall meetings on issues that come up in the community. I think that's a great way to engage people, and it has worked to our benefit. Encourage residents to get involved in other volunteer projects, and I would support the goals of the board and the staff in doing the basics of HOA activities, which are maintaining the facilities, enforcing the covenants, providing the recreation opportunities for quality of life, maintaining a sound financial standing, and maintaining property values, thereby maintaining property values.
Thank you. Manny Agrinia.
Thanks again. Thanks again, Steve. Like Steve pointed out, I will be one of those new board members if I were to get your vote and be elected. I think one of the big things I would bring to the table is basically a new and different way of thinking about certain things. Like I mentioned earlier on, I am very, very interested in the area of kind of communication, fostering it among neighbors and things like that, because I've seen how it worked for me. The very first time that the main reason I actually even joined or became an assistant scoutmaster was because my neighbor told me about her son who was a Cub Scout. At the time, it had not crossed my mind that my son would join it. I put my son in as a Cub Scout. He loved it. He has stuck with it from Cub Scout all the way through to Boy Scout, and he's going on. I got involved because he said he wanted to go all the way to Eagle Scout. From then on, I got to meet a whole bunch of neighbors I would have never spoken to if I hadn't joined this. Great folks. We talk about every topic on the earth. Okay, we really do. We have different opinions and politics and things like that, but we talk about it. We go camping together. We love it. It is from that activity that I decided, you know what? Yeah, I could do more. I wanted to run now for the board. And that's what I'm doing. So communication, big area for me. I think If I were to get your vote and get elected to this board, I would bring some new ideas to the table. I would perhaps look at areas where, for example, talking about getting renters involved more in the community. I was a renter before I became an owner. One of the things that I know kind of stopped me from doing more was because I didn't know a whole lot about the association itself. As a renter, it went through my owner, the person who, my landlord, excuse me. So, if we help renters understand more, they might be able to contribute more. That's why I'm asking for your vote. Sorry I went over.
Thank you. On behalf of LRPRA, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight's Meet the Candidates. In particular, I want to thank our candidates. I wish each of you the best of luck in the upcoming election, and I encourage all association members to vote in the election. Ballots containing online voting information will be mailed earlier this month, and if you not receive a ballot, please contact the association office and the members, and they'll make sure that you give one. Association members also have the option of voting online, and that actually begins tonight at midnight. So the board election, by going to or you can go to our Lake Ridge Association website at lrpra.com. The election results for this election will be announced at the 45th annual meeting of the membership, which is on February the 14th, right here at the Tall Oaks Community Center at 8 o'clock. You'll also have the opportunity to vote at that meeting if you so desire. The meeting will include refreshments, prize drawings for homeowners who have voted, and I'd also like to extend an invitation to all of you to attend that meeting as well. I want to thank all of you again, being redundant, for coming tonight. I especially want to thank the candidates. You did a wonderful job tonight, expressing your views, and I thank you for that. And I thank all of you. Have a nice evening.